But
So did you like crash into the handlebars, or what did you do?
yeah, I was doing so the mountain biking out here is very, very different than um it's very different than what I'm used to in like the Midwest, where the Midwest is like trees and you have some roots and you kind of go through the forest, whatever.
Mhm.
Here you're like on a cliff face and then you're going over like a bunch of slippery rocks in the snow. And I just slipped and I like started going over. I was like, oh shit. And then my handlebar hit me
Yeah,
in the mouth and but but I
but
did
like
find
teeth
this.
are okay. And
What was that?
I said teeth are okay, and
Oh yeah,
like
everything's fine.
awesome.
I ended up getting I got this really cool light out of it because it was just kind of like sitting there and I was like, okay, at least I'm not the only one who crashed because someone else's light was there. Um,
Oh.
so
That's so funny.
I got this new laser pointer light, which was a benefit. I just had to get hit in the face really hard. For the podcast viewers, my name is London. I'm a PhD student at the University of New Mexico. I'm currently getting my degree in biomedical sciences, and I was first introduced to the world of science through exercise physiology, and I hence started Freebird Endurance. Today I have with me my athlete Janette, who hails from Missouri. And so, Janette, um, before I start saying too much, I want you to kind of introduce yourself, where you're from, and what kind of racing and riding you do.
Okay. So yeah, I'm from Missouri. I currently live in Illinois, but I basically live in St. Louis. So a lot of the riding and racing I do is in St. Louis.
Mhm.
So recently I've been doing cyclocross. Um, that was chosen as sort of like a way to get prepared for like a more techie gravel race that I'm going to do in March. And then I'm actually like really liking the cyclocross. So
Cool.
yeah. And then I'll get back into some e-racing here in a couple of weeks. And yeah, I what else? I feel like I didn't answer one of the questions, but
That's all right. How did you get into riding bikes? How did you
um
explain your athletic journey?
so I started out really young riding bikes. And then I stopped as like a teenager, got back into it as a young adult, just kind of rode around the city, and then got into racing track through a friend. That's kind of where my interest in racing came from. So one thing St. Louis has is we have a velodrome here, so it's kind of a fun way to get into bike racing. It's see. I don't yeah, I think it's just a lot of different types of riders all coming together. So it's just like a nice community, and there's a lot of different like skill levels that you can kind of like somebody to ride with, and like all the races, like you can see them happening. So it's just like a nice way to get introduced to racing. And then that season that was my first season racing cyclocross too. Like this was probably like 10 years ago. Um, just very much dabbling, didn't have a coach. Just, I don't know, just seeing what I could do without like really training. And it was fun. But like now, the type of racing that I'm doing years later, I feel like um, is different. Like since I have a coach and I'm preparing and yeah, trying to do really well in these events. So
And you have been doing well.
yeah, yeah, yes, it's been going really well. Um,
I totally forgot St. Louis is on the border of Illinois and Missouri. I always forget about that.
yes, yes, no, I am actually from Missouri, so that is absolutely correct. Yeah, and then it's like we basically live in St. Louis, so
Fair enough. So one of the big things I wanted to kind of hammer home in the podcast is that most people and most athletes are just everyday people. They don't train like 20 hours a week because a lot of the podcasts that I see, there's like these athletes who are they don't work full time. They're literally like they train pro and then they have some kind of part-time gig, either coaching or doing selling sweatshirts or stuff like that. And they train enormous hours. So if you could describe your work-life balance and what that kind of looks like, some of the things that are impacting um, your life and some of the other things that you find important. So I know you have a bunch of dogs too, which are
Yeah, yeah. I have a lot going on. So I work full time. I'm a data analyst, and then I'm also in grad school. That's full time. Um, and then I have 3 dogs that are like my children. And then yeah, I like live in a house, so that has like upkeep and yeah, it's definitely like this very fine balance that I have to keep. So workouts are basically I'm probably spending like 10 hours working out a week, which works well for me. It's definitely like you have to stay very like time efficient and like have really good time management to make it work, but it does work. However, like there are things that can like derail my week. Like if I have like a car issue or like traffic's really bad, so it's like you kind of have to like be prepared for those things to happen too. So yeah, like there's there's this training plan that I follow, but it's also like I've realized through talking with you, like it's also very flexible in ways that I like didn't really realize.
Mhm.
So like you like have told me like it's okay to like switch days, like if that's how it works for your schedule, like so just like having that excuse me, having that flexibility, like like with my week is very important or like I feel like it all wouldn't work. So yeah.
Yeah.
But
100% agree. And it's kind of one of the things I wish I would have like said sooner about for some of my athletes and stuff. Well, especially for a lot of my collegiate athletes who are they have exams one week and there's no training during that week. There's just studying and they ride like
yes.
2 or 3 hours and then they go back to their 10-hour training weeks or whatever. Um, and it's not necessarily like they always have time, or they might sometimes have time to train, sometimes they don't, and it's really kind of up in the air. Um, so when you have to adjust things, let's say something that kind of pops up, let's say you have to take one of the dogs to the vet.
That's a
How
good
do
one.
you how do you adjust your training generally? Give me just like a specific example or a general example.
um So, like, I'm pretty lucky to have like a very supportive partner that I live with. So a lot of times, like, if something pops up, like he'll take the dog to the vet. But if I like were to do it, sometimes I will. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I tell you, or I'll be like, "Hey, like this is happening. I'm not riding today." And then other times, like this week, I had like Tuesday night, I got off work and I was like, I really don't want to ride for 2 hours. I'll enjoy it so much more tomorrow morning. And I just did it the next day. And I didn't say anything, but like, I mean, you've encouraged me in past conversations. Like, I mean, like, as long as you're getting the work done, like, it doesn't really matter like when it's getting done necessarily. And like, I also really get the feeling or the, the support that like it's it's okay to like honor your body and like what it's telling you and just like doing things when you actually like feel like you have the time or can enjoy it is important too. So
Hmm. Yeah, you're hitting a lot of things that I really that I'm a really big proponent about. For me specifically, it's I'll have some days where I'm just completely fatigued. Like this past week, it was Thanksgiving break,
oh,
and I'm like, oh, I actually have time to ride now because I'm not like in classes for 12 hours a day and doing all
yeah,
this other
exactly.
stuff. Um,
Exactly.
and I was like, oh, I can go and ride a bunch, right? But there's some days where I just like I have to take off, or even like have to take off in the morning, or for you, like you take off in an evening. You're like, you know, I think I'll be better in the morning. Even just having
Mhm.
that like 1 to 2, 4, or even 6 hours of extra recovery can really help.
It really it does. It does. It could be the difference between like feeling like you just have to like slog through something to get it done, or like feeling like I'm really enjoying this and I feel like I'm like 100% like putting my best effort towards it. And so yeah, I do appreciate that flexibility for sure. Um and there's something else I wanted to hit on, but I it'll come to me. So
There we go.
yeah.
Cool. So with our gravel, or sorry, not gravel racing, our cyclocross, maybe you mentioned this, but with the big gravel technical race you had coming up in March, I forget if I knew about that or anything, but anyway, super cool. Um,
Yeah, I kind of like give you all kinds of surprises too on here. No, I put it in Training Peaks, but I don't know.
or I'd figure it out eventually.
Yes, exactly.
Um, for the cyclocross, um, what have you noticed has been the biggest, what has made the most improvement for you in terms of your cyclocross ability and success?
Mm, I think that like as far as workouts that I do,
Oh, it doesn't have to
I
be
feel like
my workouts either, because I also know you
oh,
do the technical stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this doesn't have to be
Well,
about me entirely, because I know I don't do
okay. Well, I
everything.
think it's both. Like I think both are important because so like I do a lot of threshold work and I definitely see where that helps me in cyclocross, but then if you're doing your threshold work on like a trainer or like I do it like on the bike trail, it's like going and then doing an effort like that on a cyclocross course is completely different.
Mhm.
Um, where you actually have to like I don't, you're like getting off your bike, you're like jumping over barriers, you're running up stuff, you're like doing these tight little turns and like off camber sections, and it's completely different. So it's the threshold gives me the speed, but then it's like I also have to practice like technical skills. And I've been very intentional about that. Like there is a clinic that one of the more advanced racers that goes to the series that I go to puts on. So I've gone to a couple of those, and then there's just like a nice community that's very supportive and like we'll pre-ride the courses together, and then we'll give each other advice like, oh, this is how you get up that hill, or like this is the best way to take those barriers because like once you get over them, there's like an uphill that you're gonna have to like fight with, or so it's just I don't just being open to learning has been really important for skill development. Just hanging out, watching other people race, watching how they will like take a turn, take a climb. Like it's interesting because some people will like run up stuff and other people will ride up it. I've also been running. That's the other thing is the running.
You have been running.
I have been running and I like running. I'm turning into a runner.
Turn into a runner? Oh, geez, I feel bad for that. So,
No, I enjoy my running a lot, and it definitely gives me a competitive advantage in the racing.
cool.
Um, yeah, it's definitely been like that's how I got like second place a couple of weeks ago instead of third. Was I was able to overtake somebody in a running spot on the course. So yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. So I do want to get back to a little bit more technical stuff, but for the running, what kind of running workouts have we been doing and how do they maybe differ
Mm,
from or are similar to our biking workouts?
so running, it will be it's been two workouts a week. One is endurance, so that puts me my heart rate's typically like it's heart rate based. So
Mhm.
and and then my other workout will be more it's intervals and it's more like speed based, like it uses pace. Um, that one is what is it? It's like 6 by 45 seconds by like I don't know. It's really hard. That's what I know. And and it like never gets easier. But yeah. So one day of intervals, one day of endurance. The endurance is fun. Like I can take my dog with me and we'll just go down to like the bike trail or yesterday I was like out in the snow, but like I wanted that. So um but yeah, the intervals are really, really hard. Um like I don't even know. Are those supposed to be like threshold intervals? I don't even know enough about run. I just know I do the intervals and they're fast.
So I picked up those intervals from a guy named Marius Bakken. He was
Mhm.
a like Olympic. I think he was an Olympic runner. I think in like the mile and maybe a 5K as well. So he was fast from Norway. He has a whole website, mariusbakken.org or something. And he actually outlines his entire training program and things that he does. And his
Mhm.
thought process was by doing these kind of shorter threshold like efforts, you can still get a lot of the still a lot of the physiological benefits, I should say, without the muscular load. Because with
Mhm.
excuse me, that's my breakfast. Without the constant hammering of your bones and joints, you're
Uh,
getting less of a mechanical stress response, and so that's enabling you to run a little bit longer, a little bit harder. And this kind of gets into a couple theories. One, with the intervals, most people, it's found even with biking intervals, you can have a higher time to exhaustion at the same
uh,
power output doing intervals as opposed to just doing a steady state. And most people can kind of feel this out, like, yeah, I can go back up to 200 watts or something and keep
mhm.
repeating like 2 minute efforts as opposed to just holding it for 40 minutes like you did the other day, which was crazy. um, and the other component is that when you are doing those kind of like longer steady state efforts, those efforts are going to have a lot more mechanical stress on the body than if you were to
Mm,
break those up and have kind of these short recovery segments that allows your body to have more high quality work as opposed to fatigued work.
okay,
And
that makes
so,
sense.
yeah, it's kind of similar to like if you're doing steady state in the last 5 minutes of your 40-minute effort for steady state, it's going to be a lot higher physiological toll than if you were to do like 5 minute efforts totaling up to 40 minutes. And that last 5 minutes is going to have lower mechanical stress, but it's going to be almost equally as effective. And we can push a little bit more time to exhaustion for a um, better stimulus. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's kind of one
So
of the
the
reasons.
recovery.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
that's one of the reasons why I kind of have those, though I really like intervals, especially short intervals. I'm not really a big proponent of doing these long 20 to 30-minute intervals. I used to be when I was in college and younger and wanted to really build up sweet spot time, which we kind of do sometimes during our gravel season. We have those group rides for you where you do these really long tempo rides.
Mhm.
But they're in a group and it's generally more up and down, undulating.
Yeah.
But I'm a big proponent of shorter intervals because of that. And with the running, especially because I don't want you to get injured running as well.
Oh, thank
So
you.
you can
I
go,
worry
so you can go
about.
shorter.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that all makes sense as far as like recovery is concerned. Like it just sounds like recovery is going to be easier. Like whenever like that's the thought process. Like just have it like because it's like built-in recovery instead of just like long efforts.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And
Um,
then for those kind of staggered, so I believe we do 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off for that, which is similar to what Marius did or Bakken did.
yeah,
Um,
it's I think it's 45 and 20. So yeah,
oh,
like
20.
five
Oh,
seconds.
okay.
Yeah. But 20 does not feel long enough sometimes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then when doing that, I also try to make sure that our intervals, so the total time that you're doing those kinds of up and down, it hits about the same length of like an endurance interval that I would do for like on the bike. So that's why we generally
Yeah.
do about 7 or 8 of those. I think we might have started at 5 or 6 just to kind of get our feet
Yeah,
wet.
definitely gotten longer as I've gotten more seasoned at doing it. So, yeah. And it was like a big adjustment period too for me. Like running, I felt like I just felt awful like the first probably like 6 weeks
Interesting.
like of doing that. And eventually like now it's one of my favorite works, but it's like it took a minute. So
Fair enough. Well, yeah, it
yeah.
certainly pays off. So back to the technical things, was there one piece of advice that you learned at those clinics? Obviously, this isn't my own coaching, but one piece of advice that you learned at that clinic that really helped you to be a better racer, either for a specific race or in general. I'm curious if there's anything that comes to your
Um,
mind.
so not it's like not necessarily advice, but like one technical skill that I thought was really, really helpful to practice is like so there's like off camber climbing in cyclocross where you really have to like keep these like very tight turns, like as you like snake up something.
Like a switchback. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm like, yeah. I'm not like an off-road person at all. This is like all new. But well, I mean, I guess I am now, but like I'm still learning.
Learning your solid.
um, yes. Um, so I just think like practicing those until like I was like I don't know, like I'd like close my eyes and like be able to like see myself doing it was like really, really helpful and definitely gave me some confidence like going into races because like I I would go to a race where they would have that and I would just be like, I have no idea what to do here. Or like I wouldn't be able to make it. And it was just like taking a turn too wide and then just like not being able to like land it at the end.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't I just think practicing. It's like you just have to go practice it, like, and just be really consistent. But it does really help. It's like I already feel so much more like confident and like it definitely made me quicker. Like, um, yeah, it and I think like just a big part of that too is like I have like a friend that goes to them and then like we'll kind of like take the information, like talk about it and be at a race and we'll be like, let's go practice that one part of the course that was like really hard, or like, let's go watch other people. Yeah, it's just like, I think just becoming like a student of it um, was helpful. So I think that's like a really long answer to your question, but it's
No,
like,
you had a lot of good points in there. I like the learning or the student mindset. That's a big thing in terms of there's some philosophical arguments made there and stuff, and some professors of philosophy will argue having some kind of student or looking at things in novel ways is beneficial to even just our own humility and our ability to overcome stress in situations. But I like that you do a process called visualization. So this is visualizing. When you said you specifically you started like, oh, I can visualize or think about or see myself doing a specific turn.
yes,
Um, there
yes.
was there was this study that I read back when I was in like high school. I think it probably was like a paper, but and I have no idea where this study went or if it's even like legitimate. But it comes to mind is when they had three groups of individuals. They had one that practiced free throws. This was all basketball related. So one group practiced free throws, one group sat in a chair thinking about doing a free throw, and then one group
Mhm,
did nothing. And they noticed that the one group that did nothing, from beginning of the study to about a month after, they had been doing their practice sessions. I think it was like 2 or 3 times a week. The group that did
mhm,
nothing didn't improve. Okay, yeah, that's our negative control. We then had our positive control, which is the group that actually practiced free throws, and yeah, they got better at scoring free throws. Out of like I think they shot like 100 of them or something or 50. It was a certain amount. But the group that visualized it actually got than the better than the group that didn't practice, and it was almost not statistically significant between the group that actually practiced and the visualized group. which was kind of interesting. I have these numbers 25 and 24 in my head. So like one group was able to improve by like 25 more shots and one group did like 24 to me, which is like not statistically significant. But it
It's the
shows
same.
that visualization is a really good tool for motor learning and stuff. So,
Yeah. It's really funny. We had a like a 2-day cyclocross race, and it was like, oh, the next day we were going to go backwards on the course. So like instead of going clockwise, we would go counterclockwise. So then I like laid in bed that night, like just imagining the course like backwards, like
huh.
oh, what am I gonna do here? And then I got there the next day and it was like, oh, we're not doing that. Like we're just gonna go the same way on the course. So I thought that was really weird. Like I was like, I envisioned the next day. It didn't happen. And then I felt like I had to then I had to like ride the course and like rememorize it because it was like, well, I wrote this yesterday, but I like envisioned it backwards in like before I went to sleep last night. So I don't know.
I'm actually would be kind of curious if visualizing or riding courses backward would make someone better at doing them in the normal direction. I think it'd be kind of an
I don't
interesting
know.
study.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like remembering this like I don't there's like a St. Louis cycling legend. I can't remember who it is, but like his thing was like he would ride backwards on the course like for any race he'd do. So he would like know what like the last bit of the race was like, like so he could like have like the sprint like ingrained in his head. Like so I don't know. It's kind of like that, I guess.
A little bit. A lot of things in terms of learning, the harder you can kind of make the learning, generally the better ingrained it will become. That's one of the things that I learned in one of our classes at the university. We were supposed to like listen to or read a book. It's called Make It Stick: The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I really liked it because it made me better understand learning and how I learn and how I can ingrain things a little bit better. Because I mean, as like a PhD student, like I'm getting just shoved full of so much information that I can't. I mean, sure, you understand the same thing as in grad school as well, and with your own job. Um,
Yes. It's
it's a
a
lot.
lot.
Um,
So
and trying to take it in smaller, more manageable chunks, doing things such as um, connecting different concepts together. So for me, I find that I've been a mountain biker since I was 12 years old. I was racing and doing all that kind of
mm,
stuff, and I only rode like two trails.
sure.
Um, but I can go and race in other areas, and I would still do well at these races, even if they weren't my home trail. I might not do as well, but it kind of one of the concepts is that the more you can bring from your home course to a different place,
Mm,
the better you're going to do at that foreign place. So the more that you can make these connections, and the same can be said for learning as well. When I was taking immunology at Purdue, uh, our final assignment was to connect the human adaptive immune system to the matrix. So we all had to watch the matrix, and then we had to connect different lymphocytes and different cells and cancer and or some kind of bacterial pathogen to either the Morbius crew. Is it Morbius or Morpheus? One of the two. Neo
I don't know.
to Neo's crew and the Matrix machine itself. And so you can go either way. You can see the Matrix is the pathogen and Neo is the immune system, or some people said Neo was the pathogen and the machines were the immune system trying to respond. And so we had to make all those connections. But by making those connections, we were able to have a deeper understanding of those immunological concepts. And the same can be said
Mm,
here for cyclocross. The more you can bring of your current skill sets and knowledge to your next course, the better off you should be able to do.
Yes, yes. The
But
familiarity definitely helps. Um, yeah, there are things like I need to practice and I'm going to practice that way, like curb jumping. Like what is I don't why is that so hard?
curb jumping, huh? Yeah, fair enough. I still can't bunny
Yeah.
hop. I mean, I've been trying for years.
Yeah. So just yeah, the practicing, like bringing it from somewhere to I like the idea of bringing it to like a familiar place and do it. Like, do you think it has to do with like the terrain being similar? Like if you go somewhere that has like completely different trees or like you were saying, like, slippery rocks, like is that different enough where that like messes you up or
Potentially, or it's just that I got really cocky and was like, "Oh, I can do this." That's probably what happened.
oh my God. I think that's the thing too. Like I'll like I'll be like, I can do things like really like so much better than I was doing them at the beginning of the season. And then it's like, and then I get cocky and then crash. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
It kind of goes
thing.
back to some other research I was reading. Um, Again, I really cannot reference any of the articles that I read from years ago, but they found that individuals who wear helmets when they ride a bike are more prone to crashing than individuals don't. And it's because of this feeling of safety and confidence that it instills.
Interesting. Huh. I don't, okay. I don't know if I'm still like terrified of crashing a lot of the time. So I don't think that affects me, but, or maybe, I don't know. Interesting. I don't know. I don't have any good insight on that one, but
And I know that whenever I don't ride with a helmet, I'm like constantly like I'm just wide awake and like every little crack and bump, I'm like I cannot
like you ride
trip over.
slower and more cautiously.
Yeah, I'm just that's all I can think about because I've always ridden with a helmet. It's just something that's ingrained in me, and maybe it's a subconscious psychological like fear of something or unfamiliarity, or maybe it could be a limbic response. But
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I just think you should wear a helmet
I always wear a
always.
helmet. I always wear a helmet.
Really?
Um,
Me too.
because I mean, in the event that you do crash, I mean, obviously you're going to. My helmet saved me several times. I think
Oh,
a
I'm sure.
couple. I don't know if I told you this, but a couple weeks ago, I actually ran into a car when I was commuting. Um, I don't really remember much of
Yeah.
the situation, but I had a helmet on and I put a pretty big dent in this guy's car, and I
So
felt really
you
bad.
had a concussion, maybe?
Probably,
Yeah. And you were like moving, and the car was moving, like you were in traffic.
we were like right at a light. I'm thinking what happened is that like we were going really quickly, and then he stopped all of a sudden. Um, and then maybe I just wasn't paying attention or something. I really can't.
Oh,
Probably was just that. Um, just not great to say as a cycling coach that I'm doing unsafe things, but I'm just glad I'm okay. And
yeah,
um,
totally.
but what was really
Yeah, I did not
funny
know
is my
that had
boss was
happened.
driving by that road, saw me, and she's like, "London?" I was like, "Oh crap." She's like, "Hey, do you need a
Oh,
ride?" And I was like, "I'm good." Just really, really embarrassed and not wanting to make eye contact.
in the middle of an accident. Yeah, that sounds. I would have. Oh, well, that was nice that she stopped and tried to help you.
Yeah, everything was good at the end.
But,
Yeah.
oh,
So
scary.
with the curb jumping, um, how do you think? I did want to get into one thing that you think you can improve. With the curb jumping, how do you think you can improve that?
Uh, practice. I think it's just one of those things where it just feels really unfamiliar. Like, and this is like the first season where I'm doing this, so I just assume it will get easier as I do this for longer, and then I just I intend to practice it now. But I mean, it's still scary, and then like I have to make myself practice it, which why would I want to practice something that's but
Yeah,
but I will because it will make her. But yeah, it's just like how do you like mentally get past something like that?
that's a good point. One of the things that I'm working on is a lot of the bigger rocks here, and I just kind of have to get down to the basics of everything and kind of have confidence in that I can be able to and just kind of put myself out there and do it.
Mhm.
But a lot of times that I'm trying to get over those kinds of obstacles, I'm not a big like bunny hop person, but a lot of times I always try to focus on shifting my weight back, getting weight off the front wheel, and
Mm.
eventually um, doing this slower and slower and slower. So first you can like ram it pretty hard and potentially ding a rim or something, and kind of get over the bump. But I try to work on, at least with some athletes. I've actually been working on this with Jillian, my other coach, um, how to get over these kind of curves by lifting up your front wheel just by pedaling. So a lot of guys who like initiate a wheelie, which I can do for about 3 seconds. um, they basically find a low gear. They'll kind of lean back and they'll find that, okay, I feel pretty comfortable. And they'll pedal really hard. And what that does is it brings the front wheel up in the air. And so it
Got it.
de-weights the front wheel, gets them over, and then all they do is they kind of jump up and forward. And that's kind of like an oversimplification of what happens. I think there's some kind of rolling in there that I have yet to figure out. Um, and that kind of enables them to get over the rest of the bump.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. I have, like, done some wheelies accidentally because of, like, shifting my weight and trying to get up, like, really big hills, and then I'll be like, "My front wheel is, like, off the ground, like, how is this happening?"
A
Like,
lot of times it's getting comfortable kind of in that situation. And there's like some companies that actually make like wheelie stations where you can set up your bike in this big wooden platform with a string and it'll let you do a wheelie and find that sweet spot, but it won't let you fall all the way back.
oh, okay, it's like having, like, a guide wire or something.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Those are kind of
yeah,
fun.
it's
I've never tried one of those, but I was like, oh, that'd be kind of interesting to do.
it sounds
Um,
very interesting. Yeah, I think that sounds I mean, that makes sense to me, like, being able to practice something that uncomfortable, um, and not crash, yeah,
and actually do it in a
but yeah,
safer environment.
yes, yes, it's like one of those things, like, where it's like, if I'm able to, like, manage anything like that purely by accident right now, um, so it's like but eventually it's like, maybe it will be more controlled or, like, I can
Mhm.
intentionally do it to, like, get over, like, a curb or yes. But
Yeah.
yeah, like, you have to, like, know how to, like, shift your weight around on your saddle. Like, that's something I was learning in clinic too, is just, like, this, like the teacher is like, you have to, like, detach your bike to go around, like, curves and, like, quicker. Like,
Oh
you
yeah.
kinda have to, like, move, like, your butt, like, off your saddle and to the side. Um, yeah, I don't that's, like, still something I'm practicing too, but it does make you switchbacks and stuff. And I could, like, not even, like, begin to describe it in words.
It does make sense. I kind of like that word detach. One of the things we talk about in mountain biking is keeping your belly button over your bottom bracket and then
Mm,
just kind of like standing up riding and then being comfortable just leaning the bike over and over
yes.
as much as possible. That's what's always really helped me with mountain biking. Of course, it's much easier when you have these like super wide bars as opposed to our, cyclocross, road, gravel, narrow
Yeah.
bars. Um,
Yes.
which is why I actually just got a new road bike and I put flare bars on
Oh
it
my
because it allows me just to get a little bit wider. And it's a little bit more in line or a little more, how do you say it, perpendicular to the direction of motion, which is a little bit easier to handle than something like this.
yeah,
That's more
yeah,
parallel with the direction of motion for your arm movement, because then you're able to get more um, bicep and oh gosh, what's that other muscle? Not the brachioradialis, but brachialis, something like that. Action. So a little bit more stability there, as well as triceps. So
Yeah, yeah.
that was a couple
Just
years
like
ago for anatomy. It's like, oh.
yeah, right? I haven't taken an anatomy class in a minute, so I'm just like, "If you say so." Sounds right.
One of the things I would try, what I used to do is I found my dad when I was learning how to get over stuff. My dad, he found like these little, we'd either find like a small log or something, um, or we had these little tiles that were about, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches tall, and I would just practice
Mhm.
riding over those and just kind of getting my weight back. And once I got comfortable, I'd put several in succession, or I'd try riding this kind of tightrope of them, and I always thought that was it was kind of helpful.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds very helpful. I'm very open to just setting something like that up in my backyard. Like,
Mhm. And you do it on
yeah.
grass, and it's a little bit of like, okay, if I fall, it's not
Yeah,
too bad. And I
that's
would
the one good thing.
practice. You could start off going quickly, but then I would practice doing it slow as well. And so getting into
Yes.
like your third or second gear from the top, and then just like getting right up there, stopping, and then kind of getting over it. And that kind of forces you to like pull your front wheel up. That's eventually kind of a down the stream, down the road kind of thing, as opposed to just kind of first kind of going with it and pulling up,
Mhm.
to get you a little more comfortable, and using that kind of pedal force to get over that object when you're
Yeah.
going a lot slower. I think I think there was one more thing I wanted to talk about with that. I think what else I did. It'll come to me.
Yeah, exactly. You can text it to me if you think of it.
Yeah,
Um,
but
yeah, I think, like, I that sounds really helpful, though. Like, that's the kind of stuff that's been helping me is just, like, taking a bike out and just, like, messing around with it, like, riding around a tree, like, as close to the tree as you can or, like, practicing jumping over things or,
yeah,
um
we used to in
yeah.
the Purdue club. We used to have we would set cones out at a local
Mhm.
park, and we would have people do obstacle courses on the cones,
Yeah.
and then you would see how fast you could do the obstacle course. And of course, the guys on the mountain
Yeah.
bikes would kick our butts, but um,
Yes.
I just remembered dropper posts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so another thing you could try is when you're practicing all of those, getting over whatever log or 3 inch garden tile or whatever you're trying to get over. Um, practice, take your seat off. See how much easier that is.
Like, interesting. Okay.
Because then that kind of
Like,
forces you to, because to me, one of the things that I recently started using dropper posts a little bit more, and I actually just put one on my road bike because I thought it was funny.
okay. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
is when you have a saddle that kind of forces you, because what I realized is I like to use that saddle to kind of stay in control of the bike by having the nose of the saddle between my legs, and I find that very comforting to have it because then I am locked to the bike. And so this is
Okay.
why this detachment kind of rings with me, is because when I have a dropper post, I am now detached from the saddle because that saddle is way
Yeah.
far away from me. So now I
That's
have to rely on just my handlebars and my connection to my pedals for my own stability. And it's a little bit
yeah.
different. It's a little bit different kind of riding and trusting that you're going to be okay without having that stability in between, or that I have to trust that I don't have the stability in the legs. But after about, I think, 10, 15 minutes, I was like, oh, this is actually a lot nicer. Um, and it helps with cornering too, because now you have this saddle out of the way. It takes a little bit more arm effort, yeah, but you get used to it. But allows you
Yeah.
to kind of stay over the bottom bracket more, and out of the way of the saddle, and allows you to lean the bike more, which is something we talk about with low speed cornering, as opposed to high speed cornering where you start to kind of lean yourself.
Yeah. No, this is all great stuff. Like, this is stuff I'm trying to learn and figure out as I go. So, yeah, I'm not coming from, like, the world of mountain biking whatsoever, so it's like dropper seat posts are just, like, so foreign to me, but, like, Yeah, I like again, like this is just like where I'm like just becoming like a student of the topic and
Hmm.
like
These are
hopefully
things
by
that
like
I'm
next
learning
year
too, actually, right now. I've have not had a dropper ever, and I'm like, oh, so this is what it's actually like to kind of feel
yeah.
these things. Um,
It sounds very like funny on a road bike, but I'm like you're like saying it and I'm just kind of like it makes like I don't know like about it like but it makes sense to me to have that on like a cyclocross bike or something. Like if you're trying to like learn how to corner and like lean your bike and like it makes a difference like being able to lean your bike. Um
yeah, let's try
but
that. Let's over the next couple weeks, just put a little thing of tape to mark your saddle, and then take it off, and then see if you can go over some of those bumps and stuff. Tell me what you
oh my
think.
gosh. Oh, yeah.
Homework.
Yeah, we could do it.
I actually put it on my road bike. Um, A, because I thought it was funny. But B, a lot of our Albuquerque has a lot of mountains. We have a lot of these steep switchback descents where I'm going 40 miles an hour and then I have to slow down to like 30, 25 to kind of make this corner without going into oncoming traffic. And
Yeah.
this comes from Matej Mohoric, who won, I think it was Milan San Marino. He won some like classic race in Europe on a dropper post, and it was all because
Oh,
he
really?
launched at the top of the climb and he just was able to descend so much faster than everyone else because of his dropper post,
Is he
essentially.
is he the one that came to the United States and did Unbound? Is that Matej Mohoric? I don't remember. It could be.
He might be in the gravel scene. I've seen his name a couple times, but
Yeah.
I got that because we have a lot of like steep descent kind of climbing things, and I wanted to see how it works, essentially. So
Yeah, that's really cool. That's funny that you stole his idea. No, I think that's great, and it makes
yeah,
sense.
I just have to get the dropper working because it doesn't work half the time. So that's another thing I got to
Oh,
figure out.
so now there's like a little like lever that you can just like press, and then it just
Mhm.
like makes your seat
Yeah.
fall down.
And they make specific ones for road bikes as well, because the normal ones for mountain bikes, because of the shape of the bar, it's in a completely different position. And so for the
Yeah.
one with the road bike, they make them a little bit different. So I have an FSA Flowtron, if you're curious. You can look that up.
Okay.
And actually, what bike do you ride for your gravel?
For gravel, I have a salsa
Sorry,
warbird.
cyclocross. Sorry.
Oh, cyclocross? Yeah, I have a salsa warbird that I use for travel and
Bird seat post diameter, and that just has a normal circle
I
seat
think
post.
so. Yeah,
Okay.
I
Um,
think. I don't know. I'm
looks
not
like
looking at it right this
the
second.
diameter of the seat post is 27.2. Yeah, I think my FSA is 27.2 as well. So, and it's 100 dropper posts are a whole different thing. They have different sizes of drops and whatever. I just have 100 on the Flowtron because I the seat tubes are so high, you really can't get much lower without it starting to impact your saddle height availability.
Yeah.
On my mountain bike, it's like 160 or something. It's a ton of drop, which makes me feel like I have no bike beneath me. Like I'm riding a BMX bike.
Oh gosh, that sounds fun. Um, but yeah,
But
I don't know. Like, I don't even know what that would feel like. I'm. I want to get a mountain now, like so
yeah,
badly. So like, I'm definitely going to be like asking you for mountain biking advice like pretty soon.
a little bit. I kind of got out of it in college because we didn't have really great trails. I'm starting to get back into it since I moved away from Purdue and went to better trails. We can always
Don't
talk
you
about
worry
that.
about like your bike fit, like messing it up? I guess if you mark it, it's fine. I don't know.
I I have all my like settings like very very specifically done for all
Okay.
my bikes and like my axle to I always go to the seat post rod, which is not the best. You should really go to like the top of the seat, the flat. And so for me, I always go from the middle of the axle to the seat post rod, which is about 71.5 centimeters for me. And so it's like that on my gravel bike, it's like that on my road bike, it's like that on my mountain bike. I actually drop it just a little bit more, just so I have a little bit more control.
Okay.
But all of my previous road bikes and gravel bikes were always 71.5, and I just keep them
Okay.
there.
Got it.
Of course, I have my whole system for my cockpit as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'll have to figure something out to make it like I don't know. It like took me forever to get that bike fit correctly, so I'm just very much like I don't know if I want to like move anything on the bike, but yeah, I mean,
did you
there's
have
like tape and
did you get did you get a bike fit recently?
um like right before when did I get my bike fit? Yeah, it was recent. I mean, like within the last few months. Yeah.
Okay.
Um
You can
and
always
it worked out
maybe
really
talk to your fitter as well and have them try and set the bike up with the dropper as well.
I like that idea.
I
I
know
feel
my shop
like
does that. They're like, "Oh, you got a new bike? Yeah, we'll set up your previous measurements." Because a lot of times they'll give you
okay.
like a measurement sheet and they'll just go and take care of that.
Yeah. I that makes me feel better because I'm just like this person like worked so hard on this fit. I don't want to like mess it up. Also, that bike was very uncomfortable for a very long time. So like I didn't ride it for the longest time, like just
Mm.
trying to get it to fit correctly. And it just like so it like I'm just very like I don't wanna like disturb it. But
Fair enough.
yeah.
Yeah, good chat with them. See what
But
happens. Um, cool. I have a couple more questions. Do you still have time?
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So first question, where have you seen the most improvement over the past 6 months or the time that we spent together in terms of skills, physical ability, mental aptitude?
Um I think
It's kind of a switching
I
gears
think
from our cyclocross gear topic.
yeah, yeah. I feel like I feel stronger physically, but I also feel like stronger mentally. Like I did my very first 100-mile race
You did.
over yeah, I think in September, and I would have not like kind of pushed to do it, but I'm glad I did it.
You were pretty easy to
So,
convince, I have to admit.
well, it was just very much like, okay, like you say so. Yeah, I mean, it was just like, why not? Um, so now, yeah, now I'm gonna do another one, um, which will hopefully be easier than the first one. But these are things like I would have never envisioned. I don't think to do. Um, and I also think it. I mean, it helps to have like the physical ability as well. That definitely. I feel more confident in my physical strength, so it's like yeah, I can do that. So it's just like those two things together are very important and have been built up through this relationship and this experience.
Awesome. Cool. And is that 100-mile race the one in March that's technical?
There are two in March.
Oh,
So I'm going to do Mid South. I signed up for Mid South,
sure.
which is in Oklahoma, which I don't really know much about. Just a couple of people from cyclocross are doing it, and they invited me. Sure. Um, but it's, I guess they can have very severe weather where it'll be really muddy. Um, I don't, and then it's also very crowded. I've heard that like certain creek crossings, if you don't like get to them in a certain amount of time, you'll be like an hour stuff. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Apparently, it's very fun.
First team. Yeah.
I know. I don't know. It sounds. I don't know. I'm just like okay. There'll be like friends there, and I think it'll just be like a really good experience. Also, I have this like heart. One thing I really struggle with 100-mile races pacing. Like you, especially whenever people doing like shorter, um, shorter um, events, like start with you.
Mhm.
So they'll take off faster, and then you're like, I have to get them. like you don't know like who's in your race. So then you're like pooped by the time you like get to mile 80. So there's that. So I'm like, well, maybe we can like hold each other accountable too. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, those longer events are equally difficult for people who aren't able to go and do these like 5 to 7 hour rides like every single week too. Because your body physically isn't like prepared to have that kind of endurance. Um,
Yeah.
it's completely
Yes.
different. And one of the things that one of the guys that I ride with currently in Albuquerque is an ultra distance mountain biker. So he does 24-hour mountain bike races where he's just doing laps. One of the things he always does is he goes off of heart rate and he tries to keep his heart rate below essentially our first lactate threshold. So that's like he's trying to keep his heart rate in zone two, zone one for like the first half of his
Oh,
race. So I think he generally says about like 6 to 12 hours depending on the event. If he's doing a 12 hour, he might bump it up a little bit earlier. But he does something like that, and then he'll start going into more of tempo, and then the last like hour when he's like pegging it. And that's generally his pacing strategy, which is very different than like my style of racing, where I do more closer to like 3 hour events, where I'm like, okay,
mhm.
like that first like 5 miles, people are going to go hard. You need to be able to stick with them just to be in the draft and continue going and just hope that those guys aren't going too hard that they're going to blow themselves up. Because I
Yes.
did that recently, is that I kept with these guys. I was like, okay, this probably isn't super sustainable for me, but I can probably get to the end and I probably won't be too fatigued that I can still have some sort of a sprint in me. And then by mile 20 out of 60, these guys just blew up on me. And I was like, oh, geez. I was like, so that made for a very
Cool.
long day. So then I had about 30 miles where I was by myself till my chain fell off. I have a lot of chain issues.
I like you have like lots of bike mishaps.
I do. I need to get a new gravel bike or something. This thing is cursed.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. I yeah. Um, well, yeah, I don't. That's like what I'm always scared of is like people blowing up or me blowing up. Or I just like I feel like pacing is just so tricky. It's hard not to get like over eager, overexcited.
Yeah.
In your case, it sounds like everyone else did that, and you like were the only one that was staying it.
Well, I obviously got overeager, and then I was like, well, I'm by myself now, and now I just have to. And then I paced it too hard after I was going by myself, most likely. It's
Yeah,
also a
yeah,
nutrition and water thing, and me not paying attention to that stuff because I'm more worried about classes than bringing enough food for whatever reason.
yeah.
But
Oh,
I'm more of one of
yeah,
those
food's very
do as I
important.
say, not as I do coaches sometimes.
Yeah, take lots of food, just don't miss a feed. Like, I definitely missed one of my feeds and, like, it was just miserable.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't have them packed right, so it's just not yeah, you have to be it's very, like you have to really be on top of things, like, you had like, so much preparation goes into those really long events, so it's yeah. But they're I think they're worth doing. I
Yeah.
don't know. The
How
second one will hopefully be easier than the first.
sure. So how was that experience for that 100-mile race? What did you enjoy? What did you find difficult? Because you said pacing was something that was difficult, but
Pacing's difficult because, like, whenever you start with the group that's gonna go faster than you because the race is, like, half the length of yours, that's it's tricky. It's just tricky to kind of hold back and be like, "Okay, like, this is a sustainable pace for me." Like, that's what we were talking. But then it's also just I think just staying motivated when, like, no one else is around is really hard. Um,
mhm.
like, you don't have there's nobody, like, cheering you on. It's
Yeah, you're just there.
like, you really yeah, yeah, like, mentally, you just have to be, like, in an okay headspace, like and it can be really tricky to be in that headspace, like, whenever you're by yourself and you're, like, feeling it, like it's just it can be so hard to stay out of like a negative mind. So it's like you
What are some
just
things
have
that
I think oh
sorry,
go ahead. Yeah.
what are some things that
No,
you
no, it's
do to keep motivated and stay out of that negative mindset?
I don't like that was probably the most challenging part of the race was that, like, because I don't usually do like that long of endurance events. So I I was still trying to figure that out. Like the last 12 months, like they took forever because you're just like in your head. Like, I mean, just it, like basically I was the only woman that was at that duration of event. So it was like, well, as long as I finish, like I that helps. Um, like just like I just want to finish. Um, like I also just think having like a really like just finishing, like it doesn't matter like how long it takes. Like you just want to finish. Like so, you know, like next time I do this, I think I'll like I want to do it within a certain time period or but like I think just having like a very basic goal was helpful. Um, but yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. I definitely I don't say like dark spot, but I definitely this is miserable. I can't wait to finish. Like so, um, it was nice. My husband like helped with my feeds and like when I missed one, I like called him and can you like right where I'm at and like bring me food and like so that was really nice too. Like I definitely had like support that other racers didn't have that like I needed. So like that kept me going too because otherwise I think I would have quit. I would have just not I don't know. Like just having that support's really helpful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you had a very achievable goal. Um, just finishing because I mean, even just finishing a 100-mile gravel race is immense in its own. Like being able to do
Yes.
that, most people can't finish that. Um, and it's actually it reminds me of especially when you kind of go into maybe some dark spots, like just finishing, focusing on what we call sometimes what we call the cookie jar, going into the cookie jar. This is David Goggins. So for me, a lot of times when I actually yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I was struggling on a ride as we were going up from like 8,000 to 10,000 feet, and it was
Mm,
snowing, and we were on gravel bikes, and it was just rugged and tough, and my bike was just completely muddy. It's
yeah.
still completely trashed. I gotta do some fixing on that. But at some point, I was just like, I do not want to be here anymore. I do not want to ride. But then I kind of was like, if I quit here, who is going to drag me out of this? Is kind of the thought
Right.
process. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm the only one who's going to be able to get me out of this. And I just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and know that one of the other big things is knowing that I've been in darker places before and know that I've gotten out of them perfectly fine before. I think one of the biggest things that was crucial for my mental stamina and ability to continue going was my bike packing trip. I don't know if I've told you about this. I did a big bike packing trip when I graduated from
Mm,
Purdue with my one of my best friends. In our first night, it was 25 degrees out and it was cold. And of course, he and I were like tough guys and we're supposed to like bike pack and do this whole entire thing, without any like hotels or motels or anything. Bad decision. I woke up at 3 a.m. freezing. Like this
yeah.
sucks. And so I stayed awake for the next 3 hours, and I was just like reading books and trying to like um, keep myself distracted. But I remember getting through that experience, understanding that I was okay, understanding that I was in a lot of pain. I was in this very deep, kind of very dark place. Going back to that and be like, hey, I got through that. and now I'm perfectly fine. I can go and do that and dig out those emotions again about when I got through that, digging out that little cookie of I got through that and using it again
Yeah.
when I kind of get through that, through this new scenario, which is very much less, very much less of a stimulus for a negative, or it was a brighter place, not as dark as
Yeah.
that 3 a.m. waking up in the middle of the forest, freezing my butt off, only with my bike and like 20 miles from civilization kind of place.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. It
So
can it's yeah, I like that. Like just I think I've definitely have done that before. You do like a really hard event, you're like, okay, nothing hurts as bad as like this certain event did, or
mhm,
like you can kind of like channel that and be like, okay, like this isn't ever going to be as bad as that was, or yeah, totally, totally do that. Um, it helps to have like a relatable experience for sure. I mean,
yeah. And one of
that's
the
probably why I train, but yeah,
Yeah, I don't necessarily recommend people go and do those kinds of things and to like put themselves at like risk, because that was a very extreme example, but it's one of the most prominent examples for me specifically.
like
But a
don't
lot of
freeze.
things, Wim Hof, he's a pretty big proponent of going into the cold so you can better handle the cold. So that's why he does cold plunges, cold showers, doing that kind of stuff to reset uh, your mind, your mindset, psychology,
Mm.
so that you can go and better handle things later down the road.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I definitely was feeling that yesterday when I was like running out in the snow. It's like I was like I definitely have this like mindset about like not to do it, or like thinking it's bad or it's gonna be like painful. But then you like get out there and you just start doing it and you're like, oh, this is like peaceful, pretty, or I'm glad I'm out here. Like so I don't know. I think it can be like a useful tool.
Well,
But
cool. There is a ton more different skill sets and mind tricks that David Goggin uses in his books. His book Can't Hurt Me. That's just one of the things that I pulled out. Wanted to reference that book for you and anyone else who might be into that. He obviously is a very extreme example because he did Navy SEAL training, Hell Week 3 times. Um, that was way beyond anything that I could ever fathom. So,
sure, sure. Thank you.
well, I certainly appreciate your time, Jeanette. Um, but I do want to thank you for your time
Of
and
course.
chatting with
Yeah.
me, and it feels like we had a productive conversation, and
Yeah.
both learned some both learned some good topics and some good things to work on. And I look forward to you disassembling your bike seat post away from your bike, and riding that and seeing how that feels going over curbs.
Yeah, yeah. I actually do want to do that. I don't know what that's gonna look like yet. So
Fair enough. Well, let me know how that goes. Um, I'll let you get back to your Sunday and get to your training ride today.
I'll see you later. Thank you, London.
Of course. Thank you, Jeanette.